All right, we're reading from Faces at the Bottom of the Well by Derek Bell. This story is about um, aliens come and they want to trade valuable resources for the United States to move into the 21st century for black bodies. And what happens? Good point, Madam Secretary, the President answered, but there are risks at every opportunity. I've never considered myself a particularly courageous individual, Mr. President. It was the Secretary of the Interior, a man small in stature but with a mind both sharp and devious, who had presided over the logging of the last of the old-growth timber in the nation's national forests. But if I could guarantee prosperity for this great country by giving my life or going off with the space traders, I would do it without hesitation. And if I would do it, I think every red-blooded American with an ounce of patriotism would as well. The Secretary sat down with the warm applause of his colleagues. His suggestion kindled a thought in the Secretary of Defense. Mr. President, the Secretary's courage is not unlike that American men and women have exhibited when called to military service. Some go more willingly than others, but almost all go with the knowledge that they may not come back. It is a call a country makes on the assumption that its citizens will respond. I think that is the situation we have here, except that instead of just young men and women, the country needs all of its citizens of African descent to step forward and serve. More applause greeted the suggestion. The Attorney General asked for and got the floor. Mr. President, I think we could put together a legislative package modeled on the Selective Service Act of 1918. Courts have uniformly upheld this statute and its predecessors as being well within congressional power to exact enforced military duty at home or abroad by United States citizens. While I don't see any constitutional problems, there would likely be quite a debate in Congress. But if the mail they are receiving is anything like ours, then the pressure for passage will be irresistible. The President and the Cabinet members heard reports from agents who had checked out samples of the gold, chemicals, and machinery the space traders had brought. More tests will be run in the next few days, but first indications were that the gold was genuine and that the anti-pollution chemicals and the nuclear fuel machine were safe and worked. Everyone recognized that the beliefs to the country would be enormous. The ability to erase the country's debt alone would ease the economic chaos, and Federal Reserve have staved off during the last few years only by its drastic, the opposition party called it unscrupulous, manipulation of the money supply. The Secretary of Treasury confirmed that the space traders' gold would solve the nation's economic problems for decades to come. What are your thoughts on all this, Professor Golightly? Asked the President, nodding at the scholarly-looking black man sitting far down the table. The President realized that there would be a lot more opposition to a selective service plan among ordinary citizens than among the members of his cabinet, and hoped Golightly would have some ideas for getting around it. Golightly began as though he understood the kind of answer the President wanted. As you know, Mr. President, I have supported this administration's policies that have led to the repeal of some civil rights laws, to invalidation of most affirmative action programs, and to severe reduction in appropriations for public assistance. To put it mildly, the positions of minds that have received a great deal of media attention have not been well received in the African American communities. Even so, I have been willing to be a good soldier for the party, even though I am condemned as an Uncle Tom by my people. I sincerely believe that black people needed to stand up on their own feet, free of special protection provided by civil rights laws. The suffocating burden of welfare checks and stigmatizing influence of affirmative action programs. In helping you undermine these policies, I realize that your reasons for doing so differ from mine, and yet I went along. So you got to be careful when you go along with things to get along. Or even if you think the thing is right, it's not enough to have a desired ends. So they always say, well, the ends justify the means. No. I found out very early in my adulthood, or my adult life, my 20s, that the means are actually, well, first I found that the means are just as important as the ends. And then by my late 20s, I said, no, the means are actually more important than the ends. Because if you do something for the right reasons, even if you never accomplish the goal, you will change so much, and you will have created and built something more useful than if you're just wrecking things to get to a certain end. Because if you're wrecking things to get to a certain end and you never meet the end, now you've wrecked things and you've ended it. If you're doing something in a positive, constructive way, trying to meet the end, and you never meet the end, at the very least, you develop good relationships with people. And that can be of value. It's called social capital. So be careful when you go along to get along, and be careful when you go along because you think you're using people and you're doing it, you're trying to meet an end, but you're doing it the wrong way or following the wrong process. Until next time, please take care of your mind, take care of your body, and be safe.